Hello Internet, my name's Lave, and this week I watched Free State of Jones, and it's a tough watch. It's one of those movies. So Free State of Jones is directed by Gary Ross. Now, I didn't realise until doing my preparation work for this that I'd actually seen a few of his other films, like Pleasantville from 1998 and Seabiscuit from 2003, and more recently one of the Hunger Games. Free State of Jones is a whole new ballgame for him though. It's set in 1862 and is based on the true story of Newt Knight, played by Matthew McConaughey, who was a deserter from the Confederate Army in the American Civil War. He goes on the run and bumps into some runaway slaves. Eventually they're joined by some other deserters and form a rebellion to take on the Confederate government, which eventually leads to the Free State of Jones. So the first thing I will say about this film is that the trailer does spoil a lot of the key scenes. Now, I know that's kind of ironic coming from me because I do use a lot of the trailer footage in my reviews, so I'm going to try and keep it to a minimum in this. Now, it doesn't spoil the overall narrative, but certain scenes I was sitting there thinking, I know exactly what's going to happen because I've actually seen it happen. Oh, bad marketing. I definitely think that some of the key scenes weren't quite as impactful as they were supposed to be for me because I'd already seen it. The film itself I thought was okay. It's one of those films that is interesting from a historical perspective, but it's not one that you really enjoy. It's one that you endure because of the subject matter, i.e. the horrors of war and the slave trade. And it doesn't pull punches on either of those fronts. It's pretty brutal. Yeah, not exactly humanity's finest hour. I think this film feels like even more of a slog because of pacing issues as well. There are moments where it slows to a complete crawl, but then it will jump forward in time a few months, maybe even a year, and it will fill us in on certain events by showing us text or photographs of actual historical events. It just completely messed with the flow of the film for me. I think the reason behind it was to really ram home the fact that this was an actual thing, that it actually happened, but it made it really disjointed for me. I think the real root of the problem is that they've tried to be too ambitious with the amount of story that they're trying to tell in 2.5 hours. As I say, it starts off in 1962 and goes all the way through to the end of the war, and it also jumps further in time and tells another story in parallel to the main story, which is connected, but again, it just felt a bit too disjointed for me. There are some really good action and war battle sequences. I really get the impression that Ross wanted to do for his Civil War battles what Steven Spielberg did for World War II battles in Saving Private Ryan. The only problem is they're a bit few and far between, and once again, most of it has been spoiled by the trailers. Rubbish marketing! There are some really good performances in there as well. I really gravitated towards a character called Moses, played by Mahershala Ali. I hope I've pronounced that right. And I also really liked Rachel, played by Mbatha-Raw, who becomes Matthew McConaughey's love interest. I also really liked Thomas Francis Murphy's performance as one of the generals of the Confederate government, despite the fact that there's no character development other than he's a bastard, and he is a bastard. Matthew McConaughey I thought was okay as Knight. There is a sense of Oscar bait around his performance and throughout the entire film, if I'm honest. I swear to God, there is a scene where he's giving a typical motivational speech to his troops and he ends by looking straight down the barrel of the camera. I was like, oh my God. It is like, we don't have our own country on either side. We're going to have to be our own country. All right, all right, all right. That's the Oscar clip right there. So that's my thoughts on Free State of Jones, and pause the video if you want to take a closer look at my enjoyment tracker now. As I say, I do think that this film was okay, and I think it probably would have worked better as a TV series just because of the scope of the story that they're trying to tell. In the same way that we think of Band of Brothers as Saving Private Ryan, the series, we could have looked at this as a series of 12 Years a Slave. And I do think that the makers of this film are trying to hit the same beats and reach the same emotional peaks as films like 12 Years a Slave and Schindler's List, both of which I think are superior films to this on a storytelling level. It is crazy to think that 150 years later this shit is still relevant. That's the real tragedy here. Anyway, thanks very much for watching my review of Free State of Jones. I really do appreciate it. If you liked the video, please don't forget to give it a like, and don't forget to share the lave. Alright, alright, alright. Subscribe